Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar of ATLAS.ti. I'm Ricardo Contreras, Director of Training and Partnership Development. I am based in Corvallis, Oregon in the United States. If you need to communicate with us after this presentation, please write to training@atlas.ti.com or call us in the United States and Canada to 1-866-880-0231. Or you may take a look on the website under support, and there you are going to find telephone numbers from different countries. Today I will be presenting Working in Teams with ATLAS.ti Desktop, Strategies for Successful Collaboration. The presentation will take approximately 60 minutes. As you're watching the webinar, please write down your questions and I will be able to answer them immediately. I will first of all present a few key concepts through slides, and then I will demonstrate how to work in Teams using ATLAS.ti 8 for Windows. And as I do that, I will always highlight if there are any differences in terms of how to do those things with ATLAS.ti for Mac. You have access to a set of manual sections under handouts in the GoToWebinar control panel. And finally, you are going to receive the video recording of this webinar about 3 hours after the end of it. You may collaborate with ATLAS.ti within and across platforms. That means that if the entire team is working with ATLAS.ti 8 Windows, then that's fine, they can collaborate. If the entire team is working with ATLAS.ti Mac, the same. And you can also collaborate if members of the team are working with ATLAS.ti 8 for Windows and other members are working with ATLAS.ti 8 for Mac. As you plan the teamwork process, you need to ask yourselves a number of important key questions. First of all, who will be the team manager? That person will coordinate the entire process. Will documents be coded by more than one team member, what I refer to as overlapping coding? Or will each document be coded by one person only? Will all documents of the project be available at once? Or will they become available at different points in time? Will team members work with a common set of codes? Will team members be allowed to create their own codes even if the team works with a common set of codes? What will be the criteria to guide the decision about how much to select in the document, what I would refer to as the unit of meaning? Will team members work on the project one at a time, what I would refer to as a sequential approach? Or will they work on the project anytime, what I would refer to as the simultaneous approach? And I will be talking about this later in this presentation. Will you calculate intercoded agreement? So all of these are important questions to ask, important considerations to keep in mind as you plan the process. Now, let me now talk a little bit more in detail about those two approaches that I referred to briefly in the previous slide. The simultaneous approach, that is when two or more people are working on copies of the same project at their own time, and the individual projects are merged, producing a project that includes the work from all coders, from all team members. So here you have a diagram that tries to represent that idea. You start with a master project from the team manager. The team manager creates that. And then once the project is ready, and before the team manager does any coding, the manager will export that project. And then the coders, or the team members, let's refer them to Susan and Peter, each one of them will import that project and will work. according to the instructions. And after a while, the team manager will proceed to merge those two projects, creating a final project. I refer to it as the merge project that will contain the work from Susan and Peter. Okay, so that is really how the process can be depicted. The sequential approach is when a project is transferred from team member to team member. So Susan starts with the project, she does her work, and then she exports it and sends that file to Peter. Peter is going to import it and work with it. And while he is working with that project, nobody else will be able to work with it. And at the same time, Peter will be able to see what Susan did. And then Peter will finish his work, will export it, then Elizabeth will import it, and she will work on the project. And while she's working, nobody else will be able to work. And at the same time, Elizabeth will see all of the work that Susan did and all of the work that Peter did. The sequential approach is very simple. It does not require that you merge projects because it's only one project that is moving from person to person. So merging does not make sense because merging requires to have at least two projects, right, that need to be brought together. Now, if you need to calculate intercoder agreement, this is not the approach to take. And that is for obvious reasons. Let's say that Peter and Susan need to collaborate in the coding of a single document. When Peter gets the project and he opens that document, he is going to see all of the work that Susan did on that document. And that invalidates any possibility of calculating intercoded agreement. But it is a simple approach, and you should consider to take it if the characteristics of your project allows for that. So let's talk now about the simultaneous approach, and in fact everything that I discuss from now on will be in relation to that. I can think of two scenarios in terms of how you handle documents. First of all, you may have your team members collaborating on the coding of documents. So for example, you have an interview and that interview will be coded by at least two people. Okay, so that is one scenario. I refer to that as overlapping coding. And the other one is when you assign each document to each coder. So Peter will code interview X and Susan will code interview Y. But none of the interviews will be coded by more than one person. So I refer to that very simply as the one coder per document scenario. Now, in terms of overlapping coding, there you have two possibilities. One is to calculate intercoded agreement, and the other is that you do not calculate it. Now, there are many teams that don't really need to have this coefficient that indicates the level of agreement between coders. So if you don't need to calculate that, that's perfectly fine. You can still collaborate in the coding of individual documents. Now, the other scenario in which you have one coder per document, well, in that case, obviously, there is no possibility of calculating intercoded agreement. Now, this diagram tries to show what is the process from the very beginning when you do this overlapping coding. That is, there will be more than one coder per document. You have to start with a master project, and that is a project that the manager will create, and that will include the documents that the coders are going to code, and most probably a common set of codes. as well as other optional elements such as memos and document and code groups. Now, the manager, after creating that project and before doing any coding of it, the manager will export it, and each one of the coders is going to import that project. They are going to be working with their copies of the project according to the guidelines, and after a while the manager will proceed to merge projects. If you are working with more than two team members, then merging has to happen 2 by 2. So Susan and Peter, the merge project includes the work from Susan and Peter. Lucy and John, the merge project includes the work from Lucy and John. Then those two resulting projects will be merged together, producing a final project containing the work from all of the 4 coders, Susan, Peter, Lucy, and John. After merging, there are 2 routes to follow. One route includes calculating inter-coder agreement. So you do that first. Then you engage in this process of cleaning the coding and building consensus. And once that is done, you engage in the actual analysis of the data. The second route is when you do not calculate inter-coder agreement. In that case, right after merging, you are going to engage in this cleaning of the coding and building consensus, making decisions about what coding is the right one, given that we will have the coding for at least 2 people. And once that cleaning and building consensus process is done, you are going to go on into analysis. And all of that is done by the team manager. This slide shows how is the process when you have each project document coded by one team member only. That is, you are not going to have documents in which 2 or more team members collaborate in the coding. Okay, in that case, you may have a master project created by the team manager, and if the team is going to use a common set of codes, then the team manager may create those codes in the master project and define them in the right way. Now, the team manager may also add all of the documents that the team members will code, but in that case, I suggest that the team manager creates document groups that will facilitate the assignment of those documents. So, for example, all of the documents that Susan is going to code, well, let's bring them together in a document group called Susan. All of the documents that Peter is going to code, let's have them all together in a document group with the name of Peter. So in that way, Susan will go to her document group and there will be no doubt about what documents she has to code. And the same thing with Peter, the same thing with Lucy, and the same thing with John. Now, in this approach, when each document is coded by one single person only, there is also the possibility that each one of the individual team members adds their own documents. So Susan, once she gets the master project from the coder that may include a common set of codes, perhaps may include a memo with guidelines for the team, Susan may say, okay, now I will import my documents. And then Peter will get the master project and he is going to import his own documents. Lucy and John will do the same thing. Once the documents have been added, then you're going to proceed to merge. The team manager will do that. Merge Susan plus Peter creates a project that includes their work, the work from both of them. The same thing for Lucy and John. And then the two resulting projects are merged together, producing a final project containing the work from Susan, Peter, Lucy, and John. And after doing that, of course, there is no possibility of intercoded agreement, right? Because there is no overlapping coding. Well, in that case, after merging, you engage in this process of cleaning and building consensus and analyzing the data, and that is done by the team manager. There are times when not all of the documents that will be analyzed are available at the beginning, all at once. So let's say that the team starts today and they have available only 50 of the interviews. The remaining 50, they are still in process of being transcribed, but the team wants to start right away. So they will add into the project this first set of 50 interview transcripts. They are going to work with them, and that work will lead to a process of merging. Now, once the projects have been merged, let's say that the remaining 50 documents become available. At that point, after merging, the team manager will add those new 50 documents into the project and will then export the project and send that exported file, the project bundle, back to the coders. They are going to import the project bundle and proceed to work as instructed. Now, when the coders import the project, they will have access to the work done on that project up to that point. So Susan will be able to see what the entire team has done already with the first set of 50 documents. But of course, the project manager may tell the team, well, everybody, please ignore the 50 documents that have already been coded, but instead focus your attention exclusively on the new 50 documents that I have added. So that is a possibility. That is something that the team can do. To summarize the task of the project manager, they will be the following: create the project, add documents, optionally comments and group documents as well, add and comment codes, optionally group those codes, write a memo with teamwork guidelines, that is optional, but I recommend it as a best practice, export and share the project. So in that case, create a shared location that everybody can access. And later on, when the coding process has been finalized, the manager will also proceed to merge. And after merging, clean, build consensus, and analyze. Optionally calculate intercoded agreement. The task of the team members will be to import and rename the project, to code the documents following the guidelines, optionally write reflections as well as justify the coding decision in the quotation comment space. Why did I select this segment? Well, is there anything you would like to say about it? Write it down in the quotation comment space. But in addition to that, why did you decide to code this with code X? That could be useful. If creating new codes, define them following the guidelines in the comment space of the code. Also optionally, keep a diary in the form of a memo in which you are going to write at the end of each work sessions reflections about what you did and what you learned as you work with those documents. At the end of each work session, you are going to take the time to export the project. And that is very important because the exported projects, that is the project bundles, they constitute a backup of the project. So if the computer crashes, but you have that exported file, at least the ATLAS.ti project will be intact. And here we have a set of resources. First of all, the book by Dr. Susanne Friese, Qualitative Data Analysis with ATLAS.ti, published by Sage. Take a look at chapter 9 of that book, because that is where the author explains working in teams with the program. And then I am making available for you a number of different manual sections on teamwork and on calculating intercoded agreement. And finally, at the end, there is a link to the research blog. And now let's take a look at the collaborative coding process with ATLAS.ti 8 desktop. Now I am in ATLAS.ti 8 for Windows, and as the project manager, I created a project that I named Health Practices Manager. I added a set of 4 documents. I added 3 codes, code A, which I defined, code B, also defined, and code C, also defined. Now those definitions, they go as code comments. In addition to that, I grouped together the documents according to the name of the coders. This will facilitate the assignment of the documents. So under the document group Cpder, I have documents 1, 2, and 3 because those are the documents that Cpder will have to code. And then under the document group Susan, I have documents number 2, 3, and 4. And Susan will know that those are the documents that are assigned to her. In addition to that, I wrote a memo with team guidelines. The team manager will send you the project with all documents and codes with definitions. You will import the project and rename it by adding your name. You will not add new documents. You will not modify the comments that the manager wrote on the documents or the comments the manager wrote on the codes. When coding, you will take the time to reflect upon the content of quotations and justify the coding decision. This will be done in the quotation comment space, and you are going to add your name to each comment. So this is optional, but I recommend it as a best practice. If creating codes, you will define them in the code comment space, and you will write that definition following the guidelines that the team manager will provide you. And this is where you can list those guidelines. You will keep a diary as a memo in which you will write at the end of each work session your reflections on what you did and learned on that work day. You will name that memo with your name, for example, Mary's diary, Peter's diary, Susan's diary. And at the end of each work session, you will export the project and save that exported file in the shared location. Now, if calculating intercoded agreement, you also have to follow specific guidelines that are described in the corresponding manual section that you will find under handouts in the GoToWebinar control panel. Now, after having created the project, added the documents that we're going to use, created the codes, commented those codes, organized those documents in a way that will facilitate the assignment of the documents to the team managers, and after having written a memo with guidelines for the team, I will proceed to export the project. File, Export, Project Bundle, ATLAS.ti Mac users, you go to Project and select the first option for exporting that says Export Project. I will navigate to a location in Dropbox that I created for this project, and that is where I will save the exported file that has the extension ATLPROJ, that is known as the project bundle. And you will notice that in parentheses there is my identifier, which is RBCON. That corresponds to my login credentials, the login credentials for this computer. So all team members, they will have associated to their work their computer login credentials. And next to that, you see the date of today. Now, ATLAS.ti Mac users, you are not going to see these credentials and the date in parentheses. Also, you will notice that I created in that project folder a subfolder for Peter and one for Susan. That is where they are going to deposit their exported files. So you are going to see that in a few minutes. I will proceed to save this file. And now I will become Peter. Peter is going to open her or his computer and open ATLAS.ti and proceed to import project. Navigate to the location where the manager deposited the file. He will find the file and click on open. Following, he is going to replace the name manager with his own name, Peter, so that it is going to be clear that this is the work that Peter is doing on this project. Now, ATLAS.ti Mac users, you will not see this window. Instead, when you click on Import Project and after you select the file, you will be taken automatically into the project. Next, you are going to click on Project on top left and select the option Rename and add your name to the project title just the same way I am doing here. So that is essential. You cannot skip that process. Import. Now, inside of my project, I will first take a look at the memo that the manager wrote with guidelines for the team members. I will read it and I will make an effort to follow these guidelines. Next, I will take a look at the documents that I was assigned. I will open the Document Groups tab in the navigator and look for my name, that is Peter. That is a document group that has my name, and I now know which are the documents that I am supposed to code. I will open the first one and I will proceed. I select a segment and let's suppose that I think it relates to code A and code B. In the comment space of the quotation, double click on the bar. I will write down Peter. I find this to be very interesting. So, in other words, a reflection on what you are reading in that quotation. But in addition to that, you will try to, you will take the time to justify the coding decision. So I will say, I coded this with code A and B because. Before I save, let me copy this so that I can paste it to the other quotations that I will create. I will go to another segment and I will code this with C. I double click on the quotation and save, and let me go to the same quotation, but within it I am going to select another segment and I will say that this has to do with B, paste B. Now let's suppose that I want to create a new code. I select a segment and I want to name it as code D. If a new code is created, I have to go to the code by double clicking on it, write in my name, Peter, and define the code. Code D means D. In addition to that, I will go to the quotation comment and, as you already know, reflect upon the quotation content, but also justify the coding decision. After a while, you have coded the 3 documents that were assigned to you. In this case, I, Peter, was assigned 3 documents, and I coded them following the same process that I already demonstrated in the first document. Now I am about to finish my day of work. I will save, but before doing that, and in fact before closing the project, I will go to Home, New Entities, New Memo. In ATLAS.ti Mac, you take a look at the very top, and that is where you're going to see on the left side, the plus sign. You will click on the plus sign and select New Memo, and I will name it Peter's Diary. And I will now proceed to write my diary, write what I did today and what I learned today. I will start by inserting the timestamp. In ATLAS.ti Mac, you will click on Command D as David, Command D. That enters the date and time. And I will start writing. Today I did this and that and learned this and that. Now, of course, your memo will be much more complex than that, but this illustrates the idea. So I am ready to close, but before I close, as you may remember, I have to export the project. File, export, ATLAS.ti Mac, project, export project. And I will look for the folder that the manager created for me in the shared location, Peter. And I will save it. Perfect. Now I will be the other team member, Susan. I will open ATLAS.ti and click on Import Project. I will locate the file that the manager created when he created the project and exported it. I will rename it by adding my name, import. Susan will open the memo with the guidelines that the manager wrote, will read the memo and will make sure that she's going to follow these guidelines. She's going to look for her documents, the ones that the manager assigned to her, document group, Susan, and go to the first one and start coding. I select the first paragraph and I say this has to do with A, and go to the comment space of the quotation, reflect on the content and justify the coding decision. just like the way that Peter did it. After a while, Susan coded the first document, she coded the second one, and she coded the third one. Now, she also created a code that she named code D, which by coincidence, and she does not know that the other coder created the same code with the same name, and she defined it in the way that she thought it should be defined. Now, in addition to that, Susan created another new code that she named code E, and she defined it accordingly. So she ended her coding, and before closing, she went to memos and she created a diary, just like Peter did with the date. And now she is ready to close the project, but before that, she has to export it. And she's going to save the file, the exported file, in the subfolder that the manager created for her, and that subfolder has her name, Susan. Save. And now Susan is closing the project. Now I am the manager and I will proceed to import the two projects. I will navigate to the location where the project bundles were saved by Peter and Susan. Let me go to Peter's. I will not rename it. I need to keep the name the way it is now so that there is no doubt that this is Peter's project. Import. I am now in Peter's project. I will take a look at the work that he has done. Let me open the quotation manager. I see all of the quotations. His name is next to each one of them. Let me open the code manager. And I see that Peter created one code, that is code D, and he defined the code the way it should be. Now, back to the quotation manager, I also see that Peter followed the directions and he wrote reflections as well as coding justifications. So all seems to be okay. Let me go to the documents and I see what he has done. And I will also take a look at the diary that he wrote. And I see that he was systematic in writing at the end of each work day. So all seems to be okay. Now, I will close it. I will also examine the project from Susan. So I will import it. I will look for it, found it, open it. I will not modify the name because, as I said before, I want to be sure that this is Susan's project, so I will keep the name intact. And just like I did in the case of Peter's project, I will take a look at it. The quotations, they all have her name. They have been commented as I had asked. Let me take a look at her codes. She created two codes, I see. One is code D and the other one is code E. And she wrote code definitions on each one of those codes. Now I know that the other coder, Peter, also created code D. I will take a look at the memo, and she wrote a memo with her as a diary, and I am satisfied with the fact that she was very systematic, and at the end of each work session she wrote her reflections for the day. So that is all good. And I will take a look at the documents. She worked with 3 documents, 2, 3, and 4. Let me take a look at the document groups. Susan, that is correct, 2, 3, and 4. So she did what she was supposed to do. And here they are. And I am okay with what she did. So this is a good way of me kind of as a manager making sure that everything is okay. Now I will close the project. And now, still as the project manager, I will proceed to merge. I will open one of the projects and I see that the project is already in my list of projects, and it is there because, as you may remember, I imported those projects already and I checked them. So they are at this moment in my computer. I will open one of them, Susan, and I will proceed to merge it with the other project, Peter. File, merge. In ATLAS.ti Mac, project, merge. And I can either select the ATLAS.ti project of Peter, or select the project bundle that he deposited in that shared location. Since I already imported Peter's project into my computer, then I can simply search for it. And here it is. I will select it. Now, if I had not imported the project yet, then in that case I would have had to click on merge with project bundle. All right, so I will select merge with project, and I will search for it. I will find it, the one that says Peter, not the one that says snapshot, and I will click on merge. And please do not unselect the option that says create a snapshot of your current project before the merge. So keep that selected. So ATLAS.ti identified a conflict because of the fact that both coders created a code and named it the same way, code D. You will see a table that says code D, conflict. It identifies the kind of conflict that is the same name. Master is the project that I first opened, that is Susan's project, and that project came with code D. The import project is the second project, that is the one with which I am merging Susan's project. In this case, this is Peter's project, and that project comes also with code D, and ATLAS.ti identifies it by adding the number 2. In that way, we distinguish between the one from Susan, code D, and the one from Peter, code D2. Above, you will see keep and override. Well, keep or just keep it the way it is with the default option. And for learning more about what this means, please take a look at the manual section on teamwork. And now I will proceed to merge. If I do not click on merge, the merge will not happen. There is a table that gives me numbers indicating the result of the merge. You can save this table, but I am not going to spend time examining it. Instead, I will close this window, and now I am in a project that includes the work from both coders. So let's take a look at this project. The list of documents. They are the 4 documents that the manager created, and they were created precisely by the manager, and because the name of the manager, the ID, is listed. The document number 1 that was assigned to Peter created 4 quotations in that document. Document number 2 was assigned to both Peter and Susan, and between both they created 8 quotations. Document number 3 was assigned to Peter and Susan, and between both of them, they created 6 quotations. And document number 4 was assigned to Susan only, and she created 3 quotations in that document. I will close the document manager. The quotation manager. I see the list of all of the quotations, and I see under created the name of the person who created the quotation, who did the coding. Peter, Susan, Peter, and so on. So Peter and Susan in this case. Okay, this table can be very useful, and I will suggest to you that you create an output. Excel export in ATLAS.ti Mac. Inside of the quotation manager, you are going to see on top right a little square with an arrow pointing up. That is the universal icon for creating outputs. You are going to click there and select Spreadsheet, Excel Export. I will determine the columns of this table, and each one of these options corresponds to a column. All I really want is the ID, the quotation content, the comment, the codes. The references do not select that, but of course on your own you can experiment with all of these options. And created by and export. So I think this is a useful table that you can use to study what the different coders have done. And perhaps after reading this, you can start writing, but not yet. At this moment, I just want you to see the table. And here it tells you who did the coding. You see that Peter. Remember, code D2 comes from Peter, and code D comes from Susan. There you go. I'm going to close this down. I will also take a look at my list of codes. And here I see that the manager created 3 codes, A, B, and C, and Susan created 1. In fact, she created 2, code D and code E, while Peter created only 1, code D2. And the codes were defined by both coders as requested. Let me take a look at my list of memos. And here I see Peter's diary and I see Susan's diary. Now, let's suppose that I want to calculate intercoder agreement. In ATLAS.ti Windows, go to Analyze, Enable Intercoder Mode. In ATLAS.ti Mac, go to Project, Enable Intercoder Mode. Intercoder mode changes how codings are managed and provides functions to analyze codings from different users. Normally, a specific code can only be applied once to a given quotation, but intercoder mode allows different users to assign the same code to a quotation multiple times. These codings even remain intact after codes are merged or split, or after the project merges. Enabling intercoder mode is a prerequisite for an intercoder agreement analysis. So you have to study this and try to understand it through practice. I'm going to enable it, and not only that, but I will proceed to calculate intercoder agreement, and that requires that I click on intercoder agreement. ATLAS.ti Mac users go to Analyze and select the intercoded agreement option. All right, so here we are. The first step is to add the coders that I will compare. Peter and Susan. Add coders. In this case, the manager did not do any coding. You see that? So that is why I did not select his name. Now I will add the documents that I want to compare. Add documents. Next, I will add the semantic domain, and that refers to the codes. I will select each one of them. Add codes. So here we are. Here we have an overview of the intercoder agreement for all codes in all documents. Now, I will have to determine what measure should I use. ATLAS.ti provides 4 measures. Now, I cannot in this session explain to you the statistics behind each one of these measures. But what you should know is that they all give you different information. So you need to decide which one of these measures is the best for you. And you can only decide that if you read the manual section on calculating intercoded agreement. So I made that manual section available in the under handouts. So please read that. That is really essential, because not only you will be able to determine what measure to use, but that manual section will also help you to explain in your report why is it that you use that measure, and to interpret the coefficients that the program will give you. So let me select simple percent agreement, and it tells me that there is an agreement of 4.2. Now, if I select show document details, then it will give me percentages for each one of the documents. Now, document 4 was only coded with one person. You see blue, that is Susan. And the document 1 was also coded by one coder. Documents 2 and 3 were the ones that were coded with both. That is why you see brown and blue. If I change the measure to Holstein index, I get 17.5. So that is very different from 4.2. But what does it mean, right? Well, you have to read the manual for that. You can export the numbers into Excel and include that in your report. And if you select one of these little bars representing quotations, you are going to see on the right side the actual quotation. Below, you can read the preview of it. And on the right side below, you will read the comment that the coder wrote in relation to that quotation. So you can go one by one, and you will be able to read those quotations. If you double click on the quotation, it takes you back to the context. All right, so that is all that I would like to say about intercoded agreement. I'm going to close this down. And I invite you to now start reading and looking at the documents and cleaning the coding. So I will go to Analyze and disable the intercoded mode. Let's see what happens with that. When you practice, you clean the coding, or build consensus, as I like to say. Try it with both, with the intercoded mode enabled, and also try it with the intercoded mode disabled. In ATLAS.ti Mac, go to Project and disable the intercoded mode. So now, let's take a look at what we have done. Well, the first document we know that was only coded by one person. What can you do here? Well, the team is looking at this, right? And the team has to decide, well, do we agree with this coding that was done by Peter? Do we agree with it? Yes or no? Maybe we agree with it, but we do not agree with the quotation, it's too long, so I will make an adjustment to it. You see that? If the team says, no, the coding by Peter here is wrong and we need to add another code, A, B is okay, but it should also be C, you are going to code with C. And now you will notice that the color is different. It's orange because this is me, the manager. Remember, Mac users, you do not see colors. You have to look at the inspector on the right side to see the author of the codings. Let me go to the next document. And this is where we see two coders in the document. First one, both of them coincided in the quotation, but they disagreed on the coding. Let's say that we think that A and B is okay, and we also think that C is okay. So what I will do is I will drag and drop code C onto the other quotation, and I will delete the quotation that is now orphan. There is no code attached to it. Another option that you have is that you merge together the two codes D. Remember, one person created code D and the other person created another code and named it the same way. So now ATLAS.ti distinguishes one from the other. One is code D from Susan and code D2 from Peter. Well, you may not want to have those two codes. That is an option. In that case, you may want to merge them together so that you have one single code D, and that code D will include the quotations from those two original codes. So that's what I will do now. Now, when you merge in ATLAS.ti Windows, this is not the case of ATLAS.ti Mac. What will happen is that the comment that is written on the second code will disappear, and you will only keep the comment that was written on the first one. So in the first one is what I refer to as the target code. You will understand that now. I am going to select the two codes, go to merge, and select the target. The target will be code D, the one from Susan. Merge codes. And you see, only the comment from Susan is kept. But since I copied beforehand the comment that Peter wrote on the code, now I have it there. And this can be informative, this can be helpful to know what is that both coders had in mind when they decided to create a code that they named it in the same way. Now I will go to the quotation manager, code D, only one code D. Before it was code D and D2. And here we know that quotation number 1.3 was coded by Peter with code D. Quotation 3.1 was coded by Susan. And with the same code, the other one 3.6 by Peter and the other one 4.1 by Susan. So this is something that you can do. And there are other things that you can also do as you clean the project after merging, but basically this is all in a nutshell. I recommend that you take a look at the manual sections on teamwork for Windows, Mac, as well as mixed teams that I have made available for you. Okay, and of course you have to, before closing the project, you need to export it, right? So that is very important. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here today and for watching this webinar. If you have questions afterwards, please feel free to write to us to training@atlas.ti.com or give us a call to the phone number listed here, or if you are in another country, go to our website under support, and that is where you are going to find phone numbers from different countries. So thank you, all of you. Goodbye.